What that can't happen to me thing happened to you. A car crashed through my kitchen last year. A snake fell out of a tree and bit me on the head. ETA, I have always been more scared of snakes than anyone I know, so it's just so ironic that this happened to me of all people. I was an innocent bystander shot in the chest during a drive-by. My brother-in-law had a psychotic break after going off his medication which he hid from us, and killed my sleeping father, then himself. Perfectly normal the night before, we were laughing and talking and he asked if I would make a certain meal for dinner the next day. 8 hours later, our family was shattered. My dad killed himself when I was 13. Left my mum widowed at 41 with 2 kids. He was meant to drive up to meet us at his sister's holiday house and instead he went and offed himself. He had just gone on a new depression medication that, these days, when you start it you're not meant to be left alone for the initial 2 weeks because it can get much worse before it gets better, so that's pretty dumb. My dad committed murder-suicide. Everyone else's stories are very sad, so here's something a bit lighter. I've mentioned this story before, but I got bitten on the neck by a penguin. I was at an event where the local zoo had a penguin and owl sitting on tables with handlers so you could take a picture next to them. The penguin went for my glass of wine, I moved the wine, and it bit me on the neck hard enough to bruise. They removed the penguin after that. Face with tears of joy. My brother got murdered when I was 11. Got breast cancer at age 38. It's metastatic. I'm 4 years in. I found out I married a child molester after marriage. 4-year-old got cancer. Absolute hell of a last 18 months, but she's headed closer towards full recovery. My wife cheated on me with my best friend. They're moving in together next month. I'm in a new city thousands of miles away. I found out a month ago. My darling husband, the love of my life, got prostate cancer at age 52, and died a terrible, painful death from it at age 54. He was my everything, my knight in slightly tarnished armor, the beautiful man who made all my dreams come true. I honestly don't know how I have survived it this far. Wife went to check on our 1-month-old while he was sleeping. He had stopped breathing sometime in the previous hour. Doctors couldn't save him. Was labeled as Sid's death. Our house burned in a wildfire. We lost absolutely everything we owned and only salvaged a single Cough 3 cup. On the good side, there was a boy I crushed on all through high school. We went to summer camp together and I adored him. We ended up getting together in our 20s after reconnecting, and have now been together more than 20 years, married almost 17. We're as madly in love as ever. My family and I were in a hot air balloon crash. I, a young male at the age of 17, developed a type of cancer that normally affects women, 50 years or older. Anaplastic carcinoma, a very fast and aggressive type of thyroid cancer. Within the span of a few weeks, it grew from the size of pea to the size of a walnut. Widowed at 30. IUD punctured my uterus and I had to have it surgically removed. I was abducted and saved by 2 very good Samaritans, wild ride for sure. My 6-month pregnant, 23-year-old cousin who was practically my best and only friend growing up was brutally murdered right outside her house. Apartment building burned down. I was 23 with no renter's insurance. Became a drug addict. Edit. Thank you all for your support. We can do this one day at a time. Today I am 864 days sober, medium light skin tone emoji modifier. About 10 years ago, I was stabbed in the arm with a flathead screwdriver. It was a coworker who I had previously gotten along well with. He had stopped taking benzos and smoking weed a few days before and was on a hair trigger. I said something sarcastic, and he just snapped. Get set on fire. Twice. My husband of 27 years hooked up with a married woman from our small town before informing either of their spouses that our marriages were over. This was a man who was very big on emotional intelligence, being honest, and scathing about other folks cheating. Homelessness. It came swiftly and out of nowhere. Had no savings and landlord sold the house I was in. Couldn't afford a new place, so lived in my car with my dog for a few months. Ended up finding community assistance and got into an apartment. Both parents dying before I turned 30. I got pulled over 3 different times in the same day by the same cop, in 3 different cars. I was always the driver for my friend group, so when I got pulled for expired tags, my friend let me borrow his car. The same cop, waiting at the same spot, kept finding reasons to pull me. Lost both my parents by the age of 32, lost my job, house, and life goals because of a war. All my best friends are dead, not because of the war, though. My father completely abandoned me and blocked my number when I asked him to help me leave an abusive marriage. He is an attorney. We spoke every day my entire life, all 33 years. He was my hero. It broke me. Friend from high school was killed last night in the Lewiston, Maine shooting. I read about it last night but had no clue I knew a victim till about an hour ago. Waiting for my daughter to wake up so I could tell her that her dad died the night before. I was raped in college by someone I knew. Unfortunately, that's not super uncommon, but what was is. The case actually went to court. He was found guilty. He served years in a federal prison, not months. It's disgusting how rare it is that rapists even get charged, let alone be sentenced to prison time. I slipped on easy terrain on the 3rd pitch of a climb, fell 10-15 feet onto a ledge and severely broke my ankle. I was the more experienced between myself and my partner and was in no shape to do multiple rappels down low-angle terrain. Thankfully we had cell service. The sheriff's office came and picked us off the wall from a helicopter. Never thought I'd be that guy getting rescued. Turns out I had a pylon fracture of my left ankle. This was like 2 weeks ago. I'm getting my final surgery to fix it tomorrow and then the long road to recovery. After seeing people intubated on a ventilator as a nurse, I thought I would never want to live through something like that. Not only did I end up on a vent, but I was on it wide awake with no sedation. BC I went into hypovolemic shock. They had to discontinue my sedative. BC my blood pressure dropped too low. Here I am today. I survived. I'm healthy. I'm thankful for ventilators. Stage 3 cancer at 14. I'm in remission now, thankfully. I got catfished once. I was in a very vulnerable and lonely state after suffering 3 significant losses. Luckily, there was 0 money involved. I'd like to think that I would be smart enough not to have sent any dollar, but now that I have experienced the rush that can happen can blind you, I no longer judge people who have been catfished. Most of them were probably just really, really lonely. Gave authorization to have my mom's life support removed. Still very fucked up from it since. We were very close. That shit haunts you. I was lying on the beach and a seagull flying very high took a shit and it went straight in my mouth. The neighbor's house on one side of my childhood home burned down from a lightning strike. Within a few years the neighbors on the other side also got struck by lightning and burned down. Getting roofed. I was planning on flying home for a break in college. I did the research to find the best flight and wrote down the info. My mom had a dream and decided she needed to move down to where I was. I never booked the flight. It crashed. About 3 months ago I started getting a deluge of intrusive thoughts. It was unbelievably scary to start. People with OCD deal with intrusive thoughts and these ones are terrifying. I hope none of you ever have to experience it. Having to use lethal force in self-home defense. Being in a DV relationship. I always told myself I could never be so stupid to stay with someone who hurt me. Not calling any victims stupid, I just thought I would do better by me, recognize it would only get worse and not wait for it to get there. Raped by someone I knew and trusted. When I got diagnosed with an aggressive cancer last year, an oncology nurse told me, "You're going to find out how strong you are." Nobody ever wants to hear those words. Blessings to all of you here. Conceived a very wanted son who had Down syndrome, anencephaly, and a congenital heart defect, decided with my husband to terminate because he would not survive being born, only to find out after the surgery that he had already died in utero. I'm still